we're going to go ahead and wrap up our geometry notes with circles. We'll do one perimeter problem, and then we'll do one area problem so that you have some exposure to both scenarios. Quick vocab word for us to note is the word circumference. Perimeter is the same thing as circumference. So I forgot to write it here when I made my video, but you can go ahead and write circumference right here. So anytime they ask you about circumference, they're talking about the perimeter of the circle. So like how many steps would you take to go from here all around the circle and back to here? And so we're given the circumference of a circle. They're telling you it's supposed to be 4 pi feet. And then they give you the radius, which is 10 minus 8j squared. So we would want to start out the same way we started with all of our other geometry problems by noting the formula. The circumference formula for a circle is 2 times the radius times pi. So I'm going to do what I've been doing. I'm going to substitute my information into the correct spot. So 4 pi is going to go in for my circumference. My radius is 10 minus 8j squared. And that needs to go in parentheses since all of that represents the radius. And then pi. What's really nice about having these pi's here is that you have to remember pi is a number. And you can divide by any number you want as long as you do it on each side. So we can take this entire side, divide it by pi, and divide this side by pi. Now it's really important, we don't want to treat 2 and the parentheses like they're separate terms. When things are multiplied, they're viewed as one singular term. So this one product is multiplied by pi. So we can only divide by pi once on this side. That leaves me with my new problem, which is 4 equals 2 times the quantity 10 minus 8j squared. We can handle this two ways. We can go ahead and distribute the 2 into the parentheses, or we can divide both sides by 2 just like we did with the pi. I chose to go with the division route, that's just my preference, but it'll work either way, of course. And it's important to note that there is no squared outside these parentheses, so the parentheses now serve no purpose. That means I'm going to do two things. Not only am I going to drop these parentheses, but I'm also going to subtract 2 over to this side from the 10 and change that to an 8. So now my new problem is actually just a binomial, negative 8j squared plus 8. Lots of ways to go about this. I chose to use the square root approach, so I'm going to isolate my j squared term. We're going to subtract 8 over to this side. We're going to divide both sides by negative 8. And so we get 1 equals j squared, and then we're going to square root both sides. And of course, the square root of 1 is just 1. So my answer for j is positive or negative 1. And again, geometry problems, you want to take your answer, plug it in, and make sure it's realistic. The good news is j squared means that it doesn't matter if j is negative or positive, it's going to be squared, so it's going to end up being positive. So whether I plug in negative 1 or 1 for j is not going to make a difference because of that square. So we actually want to keep both answers for that problem. In the next problem, we're told the area of the circle is 60 pi, and this time we're given the diameter. The area formula of a circle is area equals r squared times pi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put 60 pi in for my area. And the reason I'm using 7a minus 4 for radius is you have to remember that radius is half of the diameter. Half of 14 would be 7, and half of 8 would be 4. So this represents the radius. I'm going to treat this just like the circumference problem. I see a pi on each side. I can divide that pi off. My new problem now is 60 equals the quantity 7a minus 4 squared. This is similar to the square problem back a couple videos ago. We don't want to write this twice and FOIL it out and try factoring for two reasons. One, creates a lot of extra work. We could be done with this problem in just a couple steps. That's going to be a lot more steps. And two, if the polynomial does not factor, that method's not going to work and you would have to try a different method. So rather than do that, let's just square root both sides and lose the squared entirely. Remembering to write plus negative root 60 because there are two numbers squared that can get you 60. And from here, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to add 4 over because my mission is to isolate A, so 4 needs to leave. I'm also going to break 60 into 4 times 15, and then 4 would change into a 2. And then we just divide everything by 7. Now, if we were to do 4 minus 2 root 15, and then divide that by 7, we're going to get a negative decimal. If we put a negative number in for A, we're going to end up getting a negative minus 8, which is an even bigger negative. So we'll have to go ahead and throw away the minus portion of this answer and just go with the plus so that our picture makes logical sense.